In the Saddle with Sheriff Richard K. Jones.
How's everybody doing today? I'm Sheriff Rick Jones. With me today is Deputy Doug Hale. And what we're going to talk about today is very important. We're getting ready, school's getting ready to start no matter where you live, anywhere in the country. Here in Butler County, Ohio. I'm the sheriff from Butler County, Ohio. And Doug works in the schools. He's in charge of making sure the school resource officers, we have 22 school resource officers throughout the county. And Doug is the president of the association that represents school resource officers for the state of Ohio, correct?
Yes, sir.
And so he's our expert in this field. But what we're going to do is talk about school's getting ready to start, what people need to be prepared for, how they need to be prepared. The school shootings, you see those when you watch the news or if they're in your communities. We had one school shooting here a few years ago. A 13-year-old bought a .380 handgun to school and just randomly shot people and shot at people. And he was 13 years old, never been in trouble, I think, much. He was maybe on the wrestling team, took a gun from a family member, a relative, bought it to school, had some more bullets in his pocket after he'd done the shooting. And it was when I got to the school and you could see the chairs were turned over because it happened in the cafeteria and there was blood here, blood there. You could see there was a very chaotic situation that happened there. And when the shooting started, the kids got up, they scattered, and the whole school was on lockdown. And the way we teach it is that, get out if you can first. And then if you can't get out, barricade yourself in, but you're going to explain all those things, what they need to do and what they don't need to do. It doesn't happen that often, but once is too much. And when you have these things, and being in law enforcement, you always see them, they happen somewhere else. And you think and hope to God that they never happen to you in our area. But this day it did. When I first got the call, I didn't believe it was true. And then when I got there, I seen that it was true. And I believe the guy might still be in jail. He was 13. I think they agreed to try him not as an adult. I first wanted him tried as an adult, but they ended up trying him as a juvenile, but it was on the serious end. And I think he had to stay incarcerated till he was 21, I believe.
I think he just got out in March.
Yeah, so that's how long ago it's been. But it happens. And when you see it happening like the last one that happened, and the police officers didn't go in like they were trained to go in, and teachers and kids were murdered by this individual. But don't think that it can happen. But I'm going to go over some numbers right now, 2,032 school shootings since 1970. I'm going to repeat that number, 2,032 school shootings since 1970. 948 school shootings since Sandy Hook in 2012. 93% of school shooters planned their attack. And I promise you, the last attack we seen where they came in, just what was it, 6 weeks ago, 8 weeks ago, there's somebody planning right now to try to beat that number. It's a sick world we're in, but what we're going to talk about today, what you need to be aware of. 27 school shootings in the United States so far in the year 2022, this year so far, 27. Then if you look at what's going on, how we can prepare for it, there's always somebody that these people can't help but tell people that they're going to do this. There's always signs that are there, and we got to watch for those signs. If somebody's online and they're saying something, they're talking to somebody in school, and if you're a parent or if you're a child and you're watching this or a friend, let law enforcement know. Even if you think it might not be, don't be that person that knew this was going to happen, and people die and get killed. And it's terrible tragedies. And, we got in Ohio, we're fortunate, and in Butler County, we have school resource officers. I've been an advocate for civilian school teachers or personnel being trained properly and being in the school with a handgun, plus having a school resource officer. In our shooting in Madison Township here in Ohio, we had a school resource officer. Just left the cafeteria and with the principal, and the guy jumped up. Would it have mattered if we'd had 2 or 3? Who knows? Would it have mattered if we'd have had someone trained and a civilian that works in the school system trained properly? Would it have helped? We'll never really know. And in a lot of these school shootings, they had school resource officers. But you still got to do certain things to make this happen. This is not to scare people today here in the United States or here in Ohio or here in Butler County, Ohio. Doug's going to talk about what we can do and how we can prepare the kids for this, but always be prepared, train your kids, and we train them when they get to school, they get trained properly. When we had our school shooting in Madison, we just went through a training session. And the name of that, it's called what?
A lot of them use the ALICE concept.
The ALICE concept. And we just went through an ALICE concept training, I think at Madison before that happened, I believe. And like a few weeks before. And when the students scattered, and when police get there, when they first get there and they self-report. I bet we had 22 police agencies there, fire agencies. A lot of the first responders, their kids or relatives were in the school. And their kids were calling them, hey, I think there's gunshots, we're on lockdown. And some of the kids left the school completely. So we're trying to take account of who's left, where everybody is. Then there's always rumors of more shooters. Always, I don't care where it is. In our instance, there was rumors there was more than one shooter. Then there was shooters in other schools. I think one of the Middletown city schools in our area, found a kid at the same time with a gun in school. So naturally, they thought this was widespread and all the schools were closing. Parents were calling. But I will say this. When we have the little yellow tape up in the front of that school and we're trying to keep everybody at bay from the outside, the parents and everybody's responding to get their kids, we could keep the fathers, for the most part, back. But those moms, they didn't care about that yellow tape. They were coming, and they didn't care who told them to stop. They were coming. So moms are pretty tough. They didn't care about the red tape or the police officers there, the yellow tape. So Doug, explain to us what we need to do and how we deal with this in the school systems in Ohio. And so people that are watching from other states, we even have people to watch from other countries, what we're doing to combat this.
Well, one of the things we do is, the first week of school, we start training the teachers, on their first professional development days. And, we put the teachers through the training and stuff on what to do, things to remember, and how they have to make the decision to, if you can get out, like you said, get out. But if you have to barricade, make sure that you barricade, and secure the students in that room and to protect them, to do what they can. Then when the kids come in, we put them through the same training. And yeah, we do it in an assembly type. And, we go through slides with them and we go through some of the stats that you just read. And, we tell them the biggest thing you can do is if you hear something, you got to say something. Whether you tell your teacher, whether you tell your parents, whether you come and tell, myself, one of the administrators, if you hear something, no matter what it is, say something. And we also provide them with the tip line number for the state of Ohio. And then some school districts have their own tip line. And I always cringe sometimes at night when I'm asleep and my cell phone rings. It's usually Homeland Security saying, hey, we've got this tip. And so, then we'll go through that process to try and find out what we can. But the biggest thing that we tell the kids is, number one, I said, you have to tell somebody if you hear it. And number two, you can't be blocking doors open for other kids. In the past, we've had, the kids, they'll go out to their car and get something. 99.9% of the time, it's totally innocent. They forgot their schoolwork, they forgot their lunch, they forgot something. And so they'll go out and get it. But, we're trying to tell them, make sure you go through the front office. We'll let you go do what you need to do. Go get your stuff, but do it the right way. In the past, I know in Uvalde, there's still open question about, did the teacher block the door open? When she came back in, did the door shut all the way? So we try and teach them the concept of run, hide, and fight, or ALICE, whichever you want. It's all the same concept. And if you're in a classroom and a guy comes into your room with a gun, we tell them, take whatever you can in your hands, throw it at the person, whether it's a cell phone, whether it's your computer, books, whatever. do what you can to protect yourself, because you're going to be in that fight, and you're going to have to save not only your life, but maybe somebody else in there.
How long does it take from, usually it's like minutes before the shooting usually is over, am I correct?
Yeah, it's usually anywhere from 3 to 4 minutes, maybe a little bit more.
So the police are trained all over the country, supposed to go in immediately. They don't wait for the SWAT teams to get there. We're trained to go in immediately. And because we know the shooting, when it takes place, it's pretty immediate, fast, and it's over. So we got to go in, and so the first ones on the scene don't wait for the SWAT team. They go in. And I'm going to give you one funny story, even though this is a serious topic. My grandkids are going through this ALICE training, and you might have heard me tell this story. And two of my granddaughters go to the same school, and they teach you, if you're at the door and you're barricaded in, they train in training. They'll beat on the door, and there'll be somebody that say, hey, I'm the teacher next door, open the door. And you're trained not to open that door. The teachers and the students are. So my daughter, it's sad that we have to train kids that are in first grade, second grade, third grade. When I went to school, we trained in fire drills or nuclear weapon drills. Now we train in, active shooter drills. And so we have to be trained. Like you said, the doors have to be squared away. And anytime these shootings take place, the story that the media is first putting out isn't always true. Anytime we're involved in anything, I know the first report that I get is not going to be accurate. It's the first reports from the scene, it's rumors, and you're trying to put it together. It's what we refer to as organized chaos. But my granddaughter went home, and she's probably in the second or third grade, and her sister was probably in the fourth grade. And she said, hey, Mommy, if they told us not to open door for anybody. And my daughter and her husband's a policeman, and my daughter was a dispatcher, law enforcement background, whole family. And she said, that's correct, honey. Don't open the door no matter what they say. And out of the mouths of babes. And my granddaughter said, well, wonder if it's my sister, and who goes to the same school. And my daughter didn't even stutter. She said, except if it's your sister. You open the door for her, honey. And and she said, okay, Mommy. And she said, we'll deal with that later. But that's how bizarre and crazy it is that we have to train kids to deal with this. And if you don't have a school resource officer in your schools, I believe you need one. It's just the times that we're in. You can't be like an ostrich and bury your head in the sand. But don't let me interrupt you, but I wanted to live that funny story. And out of the mouths of babes. She said, except if it's your sister, then you can open the door. So go ahead.
And we hear stories about that all the time. The teachers, they're always what if. And so, we just tell them you have to work through that scenario yourself. And, in some of the schools, we'll do shoot blanks, so they can hear what it's like, so they can try and determine what it is they're going to do. Where's the gunshot? Is it far away? Can I get out? If I get out, where am I going to go? And, at some of the schools, we just tell them, we don't care where you go. We just want you to get out because if you're out, we know you're not in here.
Yeah, we had some kids in our school shooting. They ran across the street to the other houses, and they were hiding in the houses, and that's what they're trained to do. So when the life squads and everybody's responding, trying to get the wounded kids out, we're trying to get an accurate count and witnesses, what they seen, what they didn't see. So so when they get them out like that and they're running, that's the first thing we teach them to do, correct?
Absolutely.
And then where do we go from there?
After that, we tell them after you get out, we don't care where you go, just go. Just get away from here. But if you have to barricade, go ahead and barricade and leave that door locked. If we need in, we know how to get in. And another story at one of the, I think it was Sandy Hook, after it was all over, there was somebody knocking at the door, and the teacher goes, who is it? He said, it's a police officer, I need you to open up, slid his badge under there. The teacher says, if you're a police officer, then you're going to know where to get the key. And she still wouldn't open the key, so that was, that was good for her. So, there again, we try and teach them, alert, lock down, inform, counter, and evacuate if you have to. And we just tell them, if you know that the gunshots are all the way down on the other end of the school, if you can get out, get out. Climb out windows, do whatever you can to survive. But the biggest piece of it, and as you read, most of the school shooters, they plan their attack at least 6 months to a year and a half in advance. And so somebody's going to know. The last shooting that happened, right before it happened, he texted somebody that he'd been communicating with online. He says, something bad's getting ready to happen. I'm going to go shoot a school. So somebody always is informed and they know what's going on. And you always hear people afterwards. I knew he would have been the next person.
And when you talk to people, these they're not all kids. Sometimes they're adults that come to these schools. And some people are just evil, but a lot of people have mental issues, and they're in the system, and the system knew it, but it's like they fall between the cracks. And then when this happens, they go, it didn't surprise me a bit. I knew he would, or she. There's not many women that are shooters. It's mostly all males. And they knew this individual, and that doesn't surprise them. And so, and a lot of these shooters, most, like I said in the beginning, the guns that they come with are the guns that they take from family members or friends. The last shooting, the father purchased the gun or helped the guy purchase the gun, correct?
Yes.
I think it was purchased legally.
Yes.
And so there's that. But most of the time, they take the gun from a cabinet or some. So if you have a gun at home, which there's 350 million people lives in the United States. I believe there's enough guns for everybody to at least have a gun in the United States, one gun per every individual. And listen, your Second Amendment rights mean everything, and you should be able to protect yourself. But when you're at home, you should have your weapons secured if you have kids or underage kids living at your home or coming into your home. When my grandkids come in my home, I lock my guns up. And that's my responsibility. You're supposed to do that, and you should do that. My kids were trained how to use guns early on, not just because everybody in my family are cops. It's when kids see these guns, I was more worried about when my kids would go to somebody else's house and they would have a gun. What do? It's usually never the person that has the gun that gets killed accidentally. It's usually the other kid that's with them. So I trained them safety of guns, what guns can do, and what to do when they're at somebody's house or at school. And somebody shows you a gun. I think in Madison's school shooting, the kid kept saying he was going to bring a gun, and the other kids were making fun of him. Hey, you're not going to bring a gun, and they just kept going on. And then when he took the gun out, I believe it's been quite some time ago, and he showed him the gun, they about crapped themselves because he actually had the gun loaded, and it was a .380, fit in the palm of your hand probably, .380, had a pocket full of ammunition, and they started getting away from him at that point, and for some reason, he got up and he started shooting. But I believe he bought that gun early. He had it there for most of the day in the school. Am I correct?
Yes.
In his locker?
I'm not sure if it was in his locker or just his book bag, but still, yes.
Yeah, he had in it like a book bag, but at school most of the day. I can't remember if he told other students he had it, but they didn't believe him because he always said he was going to bring a gun to school. He's going to bring a gun. He's going to shoot people. They never believed him because he was kind of an odd character, but he was never in trouble that I'm aware of. Wasn't a troubled kid. But that day, again, train your kids. Talk to your kids at home. The schools can do so much, but you as a parent have responsibility to tell your kids. If you see a gun or somebody's talking about shooting somebody or killing somebody, let your teacher know immediately. Let us know, your parents, and they got to be comfortable telling you these things. And you got to monitor where they're going, what they're doing, and the schools can only do so much. So when we have this training, we train constantly, and we're checked by the state, I believe, in the training that we do. And the training's universal. It's all over the United States. Same training?
Yes.
Am I correct?
Yes.
Same training. And most of the situations, again, you could see to where the police were there, and most of the time they come in. But in a couple, was it Sandy Hook where the guy, they had a school resource officer and he stayed outside? Was that the one or not? I can't remember.
Yes.
And
yes,
then the most recent one, they were there, but their boss told them they couldn't come in, and the shootings were taking place. And the one school teacher, she was calling, begging her husband to come and help her, that she's dying, she's bleeding to death. And he tried to get in, and they've stopped him. and he went to the barber shop and got a gun and was trying to get in, and they stopped him. But everything changes when you're in these, and hindsight's always 20/20. And when you're dealing with this, you know, we always armchair quarterback, we pick it apart, but it's so chaotic, you have no idea. Everybody's responding. When you see policemen and police women on TV, when they're responding, they're in shorts, they got a vest on, they got their weapon, and you think, who are these people with rifles and guns? And it's first responders. They self-report. And we had them, I bet we had 10 agencies coming from everywhere. Absolutely. Because I was talking, remember the theater shooting a few years back where the guy, it was a Batman, I think.
Colorado, wasn't it?
Yeah. And I was at a training session 5 weeks ago in Kansas City, and one of the sergeants that worked that police department said that guy came in, cased the place out first the night before, seeing what he needed to do for the door. When he came in, he had all of his ammunition, his vest and everything on. He started shooting. But that police department had on duty that night, I think he said they had over 300 policemen working that night. And it wasn't enough. But it was a very big city, and it wasn't enough. And they had to get police officers reporting from all over their area. And he said usually they like to do it all themselves. He said they couldn't have done it all themselves. And the rumors were going around again that there was multiple shooters. And because one person couldn't have killed and shot that many people. And then the guy, they went to his house, the police did. He had his house booby-trapped, enough to blow the house and the whole block up. And that was for the first responders. So he had a radio set up outside playing music that was supposed to ignite the explosives in the house. But a homeless guy come up and saw that radio playing and thought, hey, this is a good radio. So he stole his device that was going to explode the house and kill the policeman, took the radio. Thank God. And thank God the police didn't just rush in. These people plan these things. They get online. They make heroes out of these shooters. That's why we try not to mention their names. And the media, at least they do some of that. That's some of the stuff they do right, which isn't much. They at least didn't go in and rush in and cause more officers to be shot. Any of these mass shootings, this guy with the movie and the Batman movie, they planned, and most of them plan on dying. Sometimes they commit suicide. They want to be killed, suicide by cop. But in a lot of instances, they don't. But you never have enough on duty. And remember that. When this happens, you can train. Hopefully we use what's called muscle memory, and that's where you train with this Alice. And we train the students, the teachers, the parents, and we're all trained. No matter where you're at, anywhere in the country, it's all the same. So, but it's sad that we have to do this, but we have to do it. And let me give you another example. If you're at the mall or you're anywhere, just not school shootings, pay attention to your surroundings. And if somebody's shooting, figure out what you need to do. It's the same as in the schools. Get the hell out of there first thing. Go for an exit door. Get out of there quickly as you can. Hide, barricade yourself in. But these mass shootings happen, sadly to say, more than we would expect. And it doesn't matter if you live in a small place, a large place. Most churches now are training in the same thing. The churches have security groups because they have a large amount of money. People come in, and for some reason they want to come in and shoot people in churches. Is there anything that we've not talked about? What have we left out?
No, I think you covered everything, telling the parents what to do. If you hear something, you got to say something. You got to let somebody know. We've talked about the kids and the staff being trained in the schools and the response of the officers. As you know, when I first started 28 years ago in the schools, the thing was we did the quad training, yep. And I couldn't do anything by myself. I would have to wait on somebody. Now it's the other way around. So it's gone for the better. In case something happens, we have to go.
And the reason is we go fast is because that's when the shootings are taking place within the first few minutes. Then it's usually over. So that's why police officers, they as soon as you get there, first one's on the scene, Doesn't matter what kind of rifles these people have or vests, they're going in the schools. That's what we're all trained to do, and that's what we're supposed to do, and to stop the shooter. And it's sad that we have to talk about this, but we're getting ready to start schools all over the country. And we got to be prepared. We got to train for it, and you got to look at the history. If you want to know the future, all you got to do is look over your shoulder and look at your past. And we learn from every one of these shootings, sadly to say. And when you look at some teacher organizations say teachers don't want guns in the schools, that's not true. Every time there's a school shooting, we offer free training for school teachers or personnel, and we always have more seats filled than what we have room for. We train teachers, we train personnel that volunteer for that, and we do that at our cost. And they're always signing up for it. And when you have the President of the United States saying we don't need people in the schools with guns, and last thing we need is more guns in the school. And what we tell people, the guns are already in the schools. The shootings aren't all the times that we take guns and knives away from kids in school. Am I correct?
Correct.
And so what we need to do we have metal detectors? Some schools in the big cities have metal detectors, and you don't hear of many shootings in the big cities where they have these schools because they're fortified. They got it together, and they train for this. And you go through those school systems, you have to go through metal detectors, and they got people at the door, security people. In some places, they have dads in the school. Our kids should be able to go to school and learn and not have to worry about being killed or injured, and it's just the current times we're in. So is there any last thought that you want to give out today?
No, just train your kids, because what we teach them, as you said, teach them today, it could go out through the rest of their life, no matter where they're at.
No matter where they're at. Today, I appreciate everybody listening. Share this and pay attention. We're going to do this every 2 weeks, but school's starting. Pay attention. These school shootings, I promise you, aren't over. And somebody is trying to beat the other one. That's what they do. They get online and they plan for this, and they train and plan for it extremely well. And we're on the defense when we come in. Have a great year. Have a good school year. And from Deputy Doug Hale and Sheriff Jones, good luck, and thank you for listening.